The air on Orpheon 9 always tasted faintly metallic, as if the planet itself remembered the machines that had built it centuries ago. Rusted towers pierced the sky like broken promises, and neon lights flickered against the eternal dust. It wasn't the kind of place people came to start a life. It was the kind of place people came when they had nowhere else to go. Cale Arden stepped off the transport shuttle with nothing but a small pack slung over his shoulder and a folded employment pass in his pocket. He had traveled 3 systems for this opportunity, a mining contract that promised just enough credits to survive another year. Work. That was all he needed. No attachments. No complications. Just work. The docking bay buzzed with activity. Cargo drones whirred past. Workers shouted over each other, and automated announcements echoed in a dozen languages. Cale kept his head down, moving with the flow of laborers heading toward the registry checkpoint. He had learned long ago that blending in was safer than standing out. At the checkpoint, a flickering hollow screen displayed available job assignments. Most were already taken. The remaining ones were marked with hazard warnings, unstable shafts, toxic atmospheres, high casualty rates. Cale didn't hesitate. He selected the worst one. Sector 17B, sublevel extraction. The machine droned. High risk. Low supervision. Sign. Cale pressed his thumb to the scanner. Assignment confirmed. He exhaled slowly. Good. Dangerous jobs paid faster. Faster pay meant he could leave sooner. That had always been the plan. The transport to Sector 17B took nearly an hour, descending deep beneath the planet's surface. The further down they went, the colder it became, not in temperature but in feeling. The walls grew narrower, the lights dimmer. When the lift doors finally opened, Cale stepped into a dim corridor lined with aging machinery. Only a handful of workers remained here, their faces hollow and eyes distant. A grizzled man with a cybernetic arm glanced at Cale. New. Cale nodded. Name? Cale. The man grunted. I'm Torin. Don't wander. Don't trust the tunnels. And don't expect anyone to save you. Cale gave a small nod. Understood. Torin studied him for a moment, then jerked his head toward a side corridor. You'll be assigned quarters there. Work starts at first cycle. Cale followed the directions silently. He had heard worse welcomes. The quarters were barely more than metal boxes. Cale dropped his pack onto the narrow bunk and sat down, staring at the wall. This was it. This was survival. He had no illusions about the future. No dreams of something better. Those had been burned out of him years ago, along with everything else. A faint sound broke the silence. Laughter. Cale frowned. Laughter didn't belong here. Curious, he stepped back into the corridor and followed the sound. It led him further down, past the worker quarters, to a section that seemed different. Warmer. A soft glow illuminated the hallway, and the metallic walls had been covered with scraps of fabric, drawings, and small handmade decorations. Cale slowed. This didn't make sense. Then he heard it again, laughter, lighter this time. He turned the corner and froze. A small group of children sat on the floor, gathered around a woman who was telling a story. Their faces were smudged with dirt, their clothes patched and worn, but their eyes were bright, alive. The woman noticed him first. She looked up, her expression cautious but not unfriendly. You're new, she said. Cale hesitated. I didn't know anyone lived down here. Most don't, she replied. We're not exactly listed on the registry. One of the children tugged on her sleeve. Mira, finish the story. In a moment, she said gently, then turned back to Cale. What are you doing here? Work assignment, Cale said. Sector 17B. Her gaze softened slightly. That's not a place people stay long. I don't plan to. There was a brief silence. Then a small boy stood up and walked toward Cale, studying him with wide eyes. Are you a miner? Kale nodded. The boy grinned. You must be strong. Kale wasn't sure how to respond to that. Mira placed a hand on the boy's shoulder. Leo, don't bother him. It's fine, Kale said quietly. Another child spoke up. Do you have a ship? Kale shook his head. Do you have a family? The question hit harder than he expected. Kale looked away.
No.
The children exchanged glances, then looked back at him with something like curiosity and something else.
Pity.
Kale felt a strange discomfort rise in his chest. I should go, he muttered. Mira nodded. You're welcome here if you need to break. Kale didn't respond. He turned and walked away. But the sound of their laughter followed him down the corridor. The work was exactly as brutal as promised. The tunnels were unstable, the air thick with dust, and the machinery outdated. Kale worked long cycles with minimal rest, pushing himself harder than anyone else.
It was easier that way.
Exhaustion left no room for thought, no room for memories. But no matter how hard he worked, he couldn't shake the image of that small, hidden corner of warmth beneath the planet's surface. The laughter, the children, the woman named Mira. On his third cycle, after a particularly dangerous shift, Kale found himself walking down that same corridor again. He didn't remember deciding to go, but there he was. Mira looked up as he approached. Back already? Kale shrugged. It's quieter here. She smiled faintly. That's one way to describe it. The children greeted him more enthusiastically this time. Kale. Leo ran up to him. Did you fight any cave beasts? No, Kale said. Did you find treasure?
No.
Leo looked disappointed. Mining sounds boring. Kale almost smiled. Almost. Days turned into weeks. And somehow, without realizing it, Kale became a part of their routine. He would work, return, and then spend what little free time he had in that hidden space. At first, he stayed on the edges, silent and distant. But the children were persistent. They asked questions. They told stories. They laughed. And slowly, Kale found himself answering, then talking, then staying. Mira watched it all with quiet understanding. One evening, as the children slept, she sat across from him. You're different from when you arrived, she said. Kale frowned.
How?
You look less alone. He didn't answer. She leaned back against the wall. Most of these kids were abandoned. Some lost their families in mining accidents. Others were just left behind. Kale's jaw tightened. We take care of each other, she continued. It's not much, but it's something. Why stay here?
Kale asked.
You could leave. Mira smiled sadly. And go where? This is the only place they have. Kale looked around the room. The patched walls, the makeshift beds, the sleeping children. It wasn't much, but it was something. More than he had. The accident happened without warning. A deep rumble shook the tunnels, followed by the deafening sound of collapsing rock. Kale was in the middle of a shift when it hit. Cave in, someone shouted. Panic erupted. Kale moved instinctively, helping others escape as the tunnel began to crumble. But then he heard it. A distant scream. Not from the miners. From deeper within the tunnels. From the direction of the hidden quarters. His blood ran cold. Mira. The children. Without thinking, Kale turned and ran. Where are you going? Torrin shouted. Kale didn't answer. The corridors were filled with dust and debris. Sections had already collapsed, blocking the path. Kale forced his way through, ignoring the danger. He reached the entrance to their hidden space. It was partially buried. Kale. Myra's voice. He dropped to his knees and began clearing the rubble with his bare hands. Hold on, he shouted. The children were crying inside. The sound drove him harder. Stone by stone, he cleared a narrow opening. Mira appeared, her face streaked with dust. The ceiling's unstable. We have to get them out, now. Kale nodded. One at a time. He crawled inside. The room was damaged, parts of the ceiling hanging precariously. The children huddled together, terrified. It's okay, Kale said, his voice steady despite the chaos. We're getting out. One by one, he guided them through the opening. Leo clung to him tightly. I was scared. I know, Kale said. You're safe now. When the last child was out, Mira followed. Just as she emerged, a loud crack echoed. The ceiling collapsed behind them. Dust filled the air. Kale shielded the children as debris fell around them. Then, silence. They made it back to the main corridor, battered but alive. Torn approached, shaking his head. You're insane. You could have died. Kale looked at the children, huddled together but safe. Maybe, he said. Later, as the chaos settled, Mira found him sitting alone. You saved them, she said softly. Kale shook his head. We all got lucky. She sat beside him. You didn't have to go back for us. Yes, I did. The words surprised even him. Mira studied him. Why? Kale looked at his hands, still dust-covered. For the first time in a long time, I had something to lose. Mira's expression softened. Days passed. The damage to the tunnels forced a temporary shutdown. Evacuation orders were issued for non-essential personnel. That included Mira and the children. Kale received his pay. It was enough to leave. To go anywhere. To start over. He stood at the docking bay, ticket in hand. This was what he had worked for. Freedom. No attachments. No complications. Just like before. But something felt wrong. He glanced toward the transport where Mira and the children were boarding. Leo spotted him and waved excitedly. Kale, come with us. Kale froze. Mira watched him, her expression unreadable. You don't have to decide now, she said. But you have a place with us. If you want it. A place. The words echoed in his mind. For so long, he had believed he didn't need one, didn't deserve one. But now, he wasn't so sure. Kale looked at the ticket in his hand, then at the transport, then back at the children, at Leo, at Mira. Slowly, he exhaled and made his choice. Kale dropped the ticket and walked toward the transport. Leo cheered. He's coming. Mira smiled. Not a sad smile. A real one. Kale stepped aboard, the doors closing behind him. As the transport lifted off, leaving Orpheon, 9 behind, he felt something he hadn't felt in years. Not relief. Not survival. But belonging. Ending. Kale had come to Orpheon, 9 looking for work, a way to survive, to keep moving, to avoid the weight of connection. But in the darkest corner of a forgotten world, he found something he never expected. A family. Not by blood. Not by obligation.
But by choice.
And as the stars stretched out before them, endless and unknown, Kale realized that for the first time, he wasn't running away from something. He was moving toward something. A future. A home. A family that had been offered and finally accepted.